There are significant differences between the government style, how leadership is done in differing countries. In the United States, as one of the prime examples that is regularly used, they have that federal republican democracy kind of thing. It's a republic and it's a federal nation at the end of the day, ruled by an executive president who is both the head of state and the head of government. Now, the case in countries like Trinidad and Tobago, which has a mirrored system similar to that of the United Kingdom, of much of the Commonwealth, with our parliamentary system, where we have prime ministers who are heads of government without being heads of state. That's a bit different, and how things are done, there's a bit of uniqueness in that. And I was looking at some difficulties going on out there in the United States with their recent election and the change in leadership out there. And the new president, his new administration, is trying to get his own administration to be along his lines. And it's kind of interesting to me the amount of fracas this is creating, the amount of trouble this is stirring up. While in countries like Trinidad and Tobago, when a leader is elected, it's expected that when they get in there, they're going to change quite a lot inside of the halls of power. Of course, they are going to change the people around the executive, the people around the government, the people that are in charge of various arms of the government. Of course, they are going to change them according to what their view on the whole thing is. And well, that seems to be a lot more difficult in the United States and their version of democracy. And very often you hear people compare about, like that's the real place, that's the main democracy out there. I mean, that's the thing they offer to export all over the world. That's kind of what allegedly US aid was doing all over the world, exporting democracy. But they're struggling also with some of this. We're going to dive into these stories and see exactly where some of these differences are and what the uniqueness of it, what makes it different, why it's interesting. Make sure you hit that like button. Be sure to subscribe if you are not yet subscribed. Drop a comment. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you think about the whole topic, about this video, about the issues, about the differing forms of leadership. Let's jump in. Trump seeks executive order cooperation with Congress to shut down education department. The U.S. President Donald Trump on Tuesday said he would like to close the U.S. Department of Education using an executive order, but acknowledged he would need buy-ins from Congress and teachers' unions to fulfill his campaign pledge to do so. Trump has spent his first weeks in office pushing through massive changes to the U.S. government, demanding federal employees come back to work in offices or quit, seeking cost and job cuts, and reforming or trying to shut down agencies such as the U.S. Agency of International Development. The Education Department has been high on Trump's list of targets. A White House official said on an executive order expected to be issued later in February would direct the Secretary of Education to work to close the department. A 90-day review would take place to outline a plan, and Congress input would be sought, the official said. We spend more per pupil than any other country in the world, and we're ranked at the bottom of the list, he said. We're ranked very badly. And what I want to do is let the states run schools, Trump told reporters in the Oval Office on Tuesday. Well, you see, already there's a bit of difference there in looking at how we run things compared to the United States, in that they have a federalized system. So the idea that he is suggesting there is that the federal government, that central main government, they disband basically the Department of Education and send it back down to states, to each individual state, which would have their own educational departments that they can run for each individual state as they see fit. And that being closer down to the people is the theory that some people have in mind would be a lot more effective. We're going to talk about education in and of itself coming down closer to the end, but let's look at the difference here between the politics in and of itself. We could look, for example, at the last time governments changed in Trinidad and Tobago. What did we see as the main change happening as governments changed here in Trinidad and Tobago? What changes were noted? And look at the difference, the vast difference between what could happen here and what they're struggling to do out in the United States. When the government in Trinidad and Tobago switched from the People's Partnership led by Kamala Persad-Bissessar to the PNM led by Dr. Keith Rowley in the 2015 general election, several ministries were restructured, renamed, or eliminated. Key changes in ministries. Ministries merged or reorganized. Ministry of Tertiary Education and Skills Training absorbed into the Ministry of Education. And to some extent, their departments are similar to our ministries, where we have a minister, they would have a secretary for that department. And well, when the new government comes in, very often they could close down half the ministries, reopen double as many ministries. It's up to them. And it's seen as very normal by the people, because if you voted in a government, of course this government is going to come in to implement their plans. Ministry of Science and Technology merged into the Ministry of Education. So to some extent, they did a bit of what Donald Trump, well, maybe is trying to do in terms of changing the ministries, especially in pertaining to education. During that 2015 transition, there were several ministries varied in charge of education and various aspects of it, and they said, you know what, close down those separate ministries, fuse them all into one, and we'll work from there. Now, the thing is about the staffing. Contracted staff would be able to be laid off much easier, but here we have independent bodies that are used to hire the staff. So even changing the ministries doesn't necessarily as easily get rid of the staffing, if that's what you intend to do. But the put through the ideas that are placed onto the country, that can be changed. Ministry of Environment and Water Resources split, with environmental functions going to the Ministry of Planning and Water Management, going to the Ministry of Public Utilities. Good stuff like that. And all of that was able to happen in nice and small Trinidad and Tobago, while they're struggling to do that out in the US. You know, it's a very strange thing to me when I see some of this conversation going on, coming from a different background in understanding that politics. I see some people complaining when they see his advisor Musk going through and looking to close down this and close down that and close down that. And there are lots of complaints. Unelected people are making changes, and I'm thinking to myself, isn't that what happens with every administration? Okay, Donald Trump himself was elected, but all of his secretaries, the entirety of all of the Department of Justice, the entirety of all of the Department of Education, all of the staff inside there that make decisions that affect people, they weren't elected either. And to me, I kind of prefer the idea. I prefer a format closer to ours here, where it's understood when someone is selected to lead the country, they're allowed to make changes. It doesn't make sense that you elect someone to lead the country but then handicap them from making changes, because that makes it that the problems are unsolvable, and then you really and truly can't blame them for it because they can't make any changes. And we have that same problem here in different areas, because we have so many independent bodies in this style of governance, independent bodies, and those independent bodies are supposed to be structured in such a way that they could be insulated from political influence. Now, that's a good thing, that you don't want politicians just willy-nilly interfering with anything in and around your country, but at the same time, that kind of removes power from the people. You see, people talk about accountability. How do you hold public officials accountable? Well, voting. That's the only real way that the public holds officials accountable. Democracy and the mirage that it casts of the people ruling and power of the people. Not exactly, because what can the people do? We don't have say in the day-to-day runnings. The say we have is in voting. That's what the people do. The accountability we can hold is, well, we won't vote for you and we would vote in someone else. So if that is what could be done to hold officials accountable, then if you remove public officials out of being in the crosshairs of the voters, No one votes for them, they are appointed, and no one can revoke them through voting, then that's not according to the will of the people. In the American example, if you have a Department of Education that has people hired in there since Bill Clinton in the 90s, and they are engaging in a direction of policies that are against the government that is now voted in, should they be left there? Like, does that make sense? How could you vote for change in a government if the government isn't allowed to change? And the example I say from that, and I've said this before, is you get the feeling like many politicians, many different governmental portfolios are really just parts in a massive machine. It's just a gear wheel inside of this huge behemoth of a machine. And yes, you could come and switch out the gear wheel and put in a different gear wheel. Maybe this gear wheel is a bit shinier. Maybe it's a different color. Maybe it's a little fatter. Maybe the teeth are a little more reinforced or something. But really and truly, all the gear wheel could do is transfer energy from where it's getting it and send it to where it's sending it. Because the gear wheel can't change the entire machine. You're just swapping in and out replacement parts. And either way, the machine is going to do what the machine is designed to do without anyone being able to change any of it. Now, if what you actually vote for is someone who could scrap the machine and build it over, that is extremely scary when it comes to the amount of power that a politician would have. Because bear in mind, in this case, the machine we're talking about is the government of a country. This is the whole administrative business of an entire nation. That's kind of scary to think that someone could come and topple the whole thing in a day. But if they cannot, then do the people have the power? As they were talking on education there's a bit of a tangent here on Trinidad and Tobago's own education issues, and I was seeing some of this popping up with regards to a meeting on the joint select committee inside of Parliament, where they were questioning some of the activities going on in schools and the difficulties that are faced there. So let's see if we are seeing some of the same challenges. Senator slams teachers for obscene lessons for cash. Chairman of the Parliament Social Services and Public Administration Joint Select Committee, Dr. Paul Richards, believes it is wrong for teachers asking parents to pay for private lessons for their children instead of teaching them all they need to know for free during school hours. Independent Senator was speaking during a virtual meeting between the Joint Select Committee and education stakeholders on January 29th. Government Senator Avinash Singh said the committee had received reports about curriculum overload in schools, causing stress and burnout in students and contributing to their academic underperformance at the secondary entrance assessment. Singh asked if there was a correlation between curriculum overload in schools and teachers holding private lessons outside normal school hours. You hear all the time that students complain that teachers tell them, well, if you don't get it in school, see me after. Singh asked if there's a policy or ethics at school for teachers to let their students come to them after hours of school to present the curriculum so these students can pass the exams. National Council of Parent Teachers President Walter Stewart said Energy Minister Stuart Young, who is tipped to succeed, recently spoke about the relevance of the curriculum to students. We can change the curriculum at all levels. But he added, if educators are not able to deal with and deliver the curriculum, we can shift the curriculum several times and still not get the effect that we want. The thing is, this debate, to some extent, is a kind of difficult one to get squared up, because they're talking about curriculum overload. The teachers themselves aren't in charge of designing the curricula. They are in charge of teaching it. So if the amount of information placed into this is more information than the students you have are capable of retaining in the amount of time you have them, what is your position as a teacher? Because there are many variables inside of this. All students don't learn at the same speed. All students don't have the same speed of learning. They aren't as quick, they aren't as smart. So there are students that would take longer to intake the same information from the same teacher. Then there are varying teaching abilities also. Some teachers are better at communicating certain lessons than others. When you have varying in teaching ability and varying in learning ability, but all of this is the same curriculum going to all of them. All of the varying teaching ability teachers are teaching the same curriculum to all of the varying learning ability students. Obviously, you're going to have a wide variation in how long it takes to get all of that across. And if you design a curriculum, some students who are at a certain speed may be able to finish all of that in the recommended time. Some will be able to finish it before the recommended time, and some wouldn't finish at all. And what is a teacher to do then? If you are a teacher who is seeing that many of your students aren't going to be able to complete the curriculum, do you speed up the curriculum during class hours to let the students that are faster at grasping it finish during class and forget about those who miss? Or do you go as slow as the slowest students to make sure that they catch it and then offer lessons to the rest? Because if you do that, questions would be asked, and that's what they're asking about now. Because there are questions being asked about whether it is the case that teachers are purposefully withholding some of the curriculum in class and letting students know, well, you'll check me for lessons after and you'll pay me for that. Is that the case? TNT Unified Teachers Association President Martin Lam-Kim dismissed the broad claim that teachers are deliberately holding back lessons, calling such actions unethical. He pointed to external factors such as classroom disruptions and extreme heat that can affect teaching quality. However, he maintained that private lessons, if held outside school hours, fall beyond the Ministry of Education's jurisdiction. Richards was unyielding in his criticism. That's the Parent Teachers Association guy. That's the senator. I've heard on numerous occasions parents say that a teacher told them, well, your child did not want extra lessons, so that is not my problem. He stated he called the practice obscene, stressing that teachers who are paid by the state should not demand the additional payment to deliver the curriculum. He also noted that while the Ministry of Education disapproves of the practice, it continues unchecked. Again, I ask, if the teachers are literally unable to finish the curriculum in the designated time, what then should they do? Should they not offer the extra lessons and leave the students as is? Or is it that we're saying the teachers are now expected to offer extra lessons with extra time for free? So we are basically supposed to enslave the teachers. And in case you don't know, I would have vested interest in this. I am a teacher. However, I am not employed by the ministry, so I don't have that worry. You can run in straight to my lessons. I am not in a school. All of the curriculum is delivered here for a private cost. And this is some of the ideas that some people talk about in terms of allowing parents some choice in some of these matters. If the parents come in and the parents are more interested in what the child is learning, maybe we can tweak some of these curriculum to see if the entirety of the curriculum is necessary, if it indeed is an overload, just too much, if it is that some teachers are wasting time. If parents are paying more attention, I think some of these things may actually be able to be answered. Compounding the issue is severe teacher shortage, leaving many students without adequate instruction. NPTA First Vice President Zina Ramatali reported that numerous primary school principals have complained about missing teachers due to maternity leave, retirements, and even deaths without timely replacements. She urged the Ministry of Education and the Teaching Service Commission to address these persistent gaps, warning that in some schools, entire subject areas are left without instructors. And this is the thing with a Ministry of Education, with a Department of Education, a state entity that is controlling the education system. They will feel there would be gaps. This is a massive organization, and there are many moving parts. There are many considerations. They evidently aren't able to move as agile as necessary to do all that is expected of them. The head of tutor, Lam Kim, described the shortage as critical, attributing delays in filling vacancies to an understaffed and under-resourced TSC. He also criticized the slow flow of manpower data from Ministry of Education, which hampers workforce planning. Further complicating recruitment, he noted, is the influence of the denominational school boards under the Concordat, which prioritizes hiring teachers of their faith. Additionally, teaching is no longer viewed as a long-term career, with many educators using it as a temporary job before moving into other fields, particularly the energy sector, which is attracting male teachers away from classrooms. And here's the thing. The discussion they're having now is actually going to do more of this. If your discussion is centered around trying to do something to forbid teachers from teaching extra lessons, and all of the curriculum must fit within the school day, and you get your school pay, for particularly men, because men are often more performance-based in what they're willing to accept for pay. You could look at, for example, sporting teams. Very often, female sporting teams look for stability in pay, while the male sporting teams look for performance-related pay. And you see this in many male-dominated fields. They want that performance-related pay. If, as a teacher, I am being paid the flat salary regardless of what I do, and then I hear that what those in authority are looking to do is curtail even the extra lessons. And now, here's the thing with extra lessons. Bear in mind, that's all I do. I have no flat pay from the ministry. The thing with extra lessons, it's dependent on how good you are. If you are a good teacher, you get more students. If you are a bad teacher, you get less. The thing with the Ministry of Education and the government controlling education, there is none of that. All teachers get the same regardless of performance by and large. And we see, according to Tutor, the union for the teachers here, they're saying, as it stands, this current state of affairs is not attracting teachers in the long term. And here's the other thing I think on that. What kind of teachers would be able to use teaching as a stepping stone into a more lucrative career? Generally speaking, the more ambitious, the more proficient, and maybe even, dare I say, the more intelligent teachers. So you have an incentive structure that incentivizes some of the most ambitious teachers to leave. What would you be left with? What kind of teachers would remain in the system? And how effective would that be at teaching? That's all I have for now. Until the next video, I hope you stay informed, stay educated, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, peace.